Hey, there it is. So there's so much internet traffic that I can't log in. Maybe I should start going live in the morning. No, I can't do it this weekend, so I just coming on. I talk about a few things I've been watching. So the topic of the conversation is, hey, what's up, boys? Thanks for joining. I know I'm going live at weird times, but it happens. I don't know. Maybe what time is it? 10:59 a.m. on a Saturday. Maybe that's the time to go. I've been sitting here for 20 minutes trying to get this thing to log in, and it's been giving me the traffic is so high that it couldn't StreamYard couldn't log on. So anyway, topic of conversation: is this page too technical? What do you guys think? Leave a comment when you watch it later. We'll address it. I don't know. I'm watching videos about forward-facing sonar. And quite frankly, the conversations are just dumb. I can't watch it. I can't even watch it. It's like all these dudes are having these enlightened moments, like the fish are in the structure, they're just not biting their lures, or the fish are, out in a place that you wouldn't expect to find them, especially some of the larger fish. And it's like, this is information that you could have gotten from any biologist who's been on an electrofishing boat in the last 50 years. But there's thousands and thousands of people engaging the conversation and talking about this stuff. Forward-facing sonars ruining fishing. Give me a break. You know how many times I've heard that since the 70s when I started bass fishing? When was the last time they got on something hard? Oh, the A rig ruining fishing. It's gonna they're catching so many fish on the A rig that it's gonna be all over with. I'm trying to think. What was the time before that? I don't know. I should have made notes. I don't make enough notes, I guess, but you get my point. Forward-facing sonar is not ruining bass fishing. They're not harvesting any fish to ruin bass fishing. Like, how is catching the fish and putting it back ruining bass fishing? Nobody's keeping any bass. There's always these grand assumptions that the people on the bank have destroyed the fishery on lakes that are like. I mean, I just had a conversation about this on the lake that's right here behind the house, Robin, 10,000 acres. How are the people who are fishing on the dam that, I mean, it's like maybe like a mile long fishing access right there that you might see. I don't even know. There's always people out there, but it's not like bumper to bumper traffic or anything, you know. How are they going to catch 250,000 bass off the dam to make any difference in the fish population at all? Thanks, MD. I appreciate you, man. I don't know. Am I too technical? Should we back this down? Like, because literally, like we can just sit around and talk about frogs and who makes the best floating plastic frog. It gets way more views. So I'll keep it on forward facing because it's the dumbest conversations I've ever seen in my life, really. But there's dudes building massive followings, like talking about forward facing sonar. And I just don't get it. Like I said, like back in the 90s, in the year 2000, I was at Berkeley Lake. It was about a 100-acre lake that I used to manage for, I don't know, probably 15 years. It was in the middle of a neighborhood, a community pond, and it was a nice place it's near the Bass Pro Shop on 85 in Gwinnett County, if you're familiar with where that is in Georgia, Sugar Loaf Parkway, not far from there. And I'd bring the electrofishing boat with me to try to get these points across to people, about where the fish are and, so on and so forth. So I would have the guys, they would have a fishing tournament every year that would go about half a day, they weren't even fishing that long. They go till about lunchtime and they'd call it off. And then they have a picnic and a community thing. And it was cool. It brought the community together and it was good. There's not very many lakes that I managed that even had fishermen on them. So to see people get out and, actually use the resource was nice. But I'd bring the electrofishing boat and then do a little talk, just like we do here. And my God, it's like, okay, guys, where are the fish at? You guys just fished the tournament. Where are all the fish at? Well, and they'd be pointing, they'd all have their opinions of where the fish were. And like the fish they were under every dock. Well, they're not on the docks today because, some guy to give his opinion on this. And then they're not on the riprap because everybody in the tournament fished the riprap down the dam and nobody took one fish off the dam. So it's like, okay, well, watch me go over here and watch me turn the boat on and watch me take 60 bass off the riprap, right? And they just be blown away. Like, oh my God, I can't believe there's that many fish there, And it's like, yeah, the fish are there. Of course the fish are there. The fish are in the fish habitat where they always are. Just because you didn't catch any doesn't have anything to do with it. All right? They're not chewing right at the moment. Or you're not doing it right. Maybe you're oversizing your line, or you're not making the right presentation to them, or any number of 1,000 different reasons why we could sit here and go on and on for days. But the point of the story is not how to catch the fish. The point of the story is the fish are in the fish habitat, and it's just now 2024, and these dudes are like amazed that oh my God, there's so many bass right there on that tree that I can't catch. Duh. Like, where you been? Thanks, Drew, man. I appreciate it. I don't know. It's just frustrating to watch the dumbest conversations you've ever seen with 150,000 followers and, making money hand over fist on this thing. And you're over here like, all right, yeah, I knew that in 93. Like, where you guys been? Like, you could have listened to anybody with a biology degree and learned that in the last 40 years, really. Kind of falls back onto what I was talking about the other day. Like, I don't know, lady was kind of asking me questions and stuff about her pond. And it's like, do you not have Google? Like, have you not Googled, you own a pond, right? And you're fishing for free information from me, which is fine. I get it. That's happened to me for so long that I don't even take it personally anymore. I look at it as at least somebody's learning something and we're getting some engagement going. I've answered so many people's phone calls for nothing that at this point, who even cares? This is about trying to, educate and, get people up to speed. And how is forward-facing sonar ruining fishing when nobody keeps any fish? Somebody want to explain that to me? Because I don't get it. You think it's hook mortality? You think, yeah, there is hook mortality. It's a very real thing. You catch enough fish, or you catch a fish a certain way, you gill it, it's dead. Put it in the cooler. Is it bleeding? It's got a 10% chance of living if it's bleeding out the gills. Just put it in the cooler. You haven't ruined anything. All right? Natural reproduction will replace that fish. If anything, you're freeing up some space in a crowded bass fishery anyway. It's like, I don't know. I feel like watching these things is like running on a hamster wheel. It's just an echo chamber of nonsense that people just love to talk and talk and talk and hear themselves say stupid stuff. Fishing MD says he's learning how to use a regular fish finder. Shoot, so am I. I do just fine on a kayak with no fish finder. And I got the forward-facing thing. A buddy of mine, Mickey, sold it to me for half off. He bought a different one, didn't want that one anymore. I grabbed it. Is it cool tech? Yeah, it's cool tech. I'll sell it to you right now. Anybody want to buy it from me? I'll give it to you. I'll give it away. It's a couple grand. Give me a couple grand. You can have that one. Right? You think you're going to take that thing, put it on your boat, and then go win the Bassmaster Classic? Really? Is that, to me, all right. I think the guys The high up guys that are pushing this forward facing sonar nonsense are getting paid by Garmin and by Humminbird because they're sponsored by them on the back end. And by bringing it up all the time, it's the best advertising you can do for the product by creating the controversy, just like politics on Facebook or anything that we use on here that gets anybody all. Or I've been doing it the past couple of weeks with the bass in the cooler. Have you seen have you seen the comments on the bass in the cooler that people just having an absolute riot panic attack because you've kept 20 or 30 bass? They automatically assume you took them out of public water and are messing up the fishery, right? But do you ever see those kind of responses when somebody has a mess of crappie or a mess of bluegill? Do you see anybody in the comments going, "You're ruining the fishery"? I don't. I was like, is the capacity to learn new things that low that even when you have the encyclopedia in your hand, like you can literally Google any information, but the same conversations just keep going and going and going. I'm with you, fishing. TV tournaments are boring. I don't watch that crap. I lost respect for bass fishing tournaments about the first week of fisheries biology school, and then I was in a bass club actually when I was in college. I was working at Zoom. I was making plastic worms for like 6, $7 an hour back then, and that actually was a great company. They worked around our class schedule, and I got some free tackle out of it. Got to be in the bass club for a few years. Met those dudes, learned more. If you want to learn about bass fishing, you really want to learn about bass fishing, go join one of those bass clubs that's in your local area. And as a non-boater, if you can get in, so you can fish with different boaters and then fish with the old dudes. Make sure you stay long enough that you get to go with the guys who've been doing the bass club circuit for about 20 or 25, 30 years. I learned more about bass fishing doing that. We'd go like on the weekends, they'd have a monthly tournament, I think it was. But those dudes were sharp. And of course there was some dudes I couldn't do it because of the competitiveness part of it. Um, I don't want my fishing to be competitive. I don't like that. I don't like I'm a better fisherman than you. Okay, great. You're a better fisherman than me. That doesn't mean anything to me. Um, I think there's a luck factor involved there. Now, are there better fishermen than other ones? Absolutely. But, you know, like I saw Milliken making a post the other day. He's like, he's not on his game. He's off. He's not catching fish, on to the next tournament. I like that. That's a good mentality to have, man. Like just shake it off and keep moving along. It doesn't mean Milliken can't fish anymore. It just means like, I don't know, he's the fish are in a pattern he's not recognizing or um any one of a number of millions of factors. It doesn't have anything to do with his ability to catch bass on that particular day. You know what I mean? It I don't know. And so much ego is driven from it too. Um, that I don't like that part of it. Just keep all the competitive. I'm not here to compete with anyone. I'm here to try to help people, like educate people. And like my man Flip It Kicks, Alex coming in with a question. There's talk about. That's a good question, man. See, and again, that's situational. So and so Alex has got 2.5 acre pond that I've got to get some footage to get some content on so we can get up to speed with what he's got going. He had a 2.5 acre pond in his community in Sugar Hill, and it's got crappie in it, and he's in an HOA, so he can't drain it and correct it. You never can. In those situations, you'll never get everybody on the same page to correct the fish population. So we have to manage around that, right? HOA carrying it, have no part of the pond being drained. The only time that really ever occurs is if the dam is literally broken and it's not holding water and it forces them to do it. You'll never get anybody to drain their pond voluntarily and start the fish population over. You can't even get that with a private landowner though, so that's, nothing new. But since he's got crappie, he's battling a situation where his bass are underweight, not to be confused with a pond with no crappie where your bass are underweight and you can harvest them to correct that problem. Just like our poker chip analysis or analogy. I got them right here, but can we tip them down? Yeah, that's not a good angle. Anyway, the space is limited. We only have so many, just like this glass of water. There's only so much space in this glass of water, right? And if one species is with one competing species of fish, try to get that mouthful out, takes over, it displaces the game fish and it makes the fishing poor. But what I can't do is tell Alex, hey, your bass weights are low, keep some bass and correct it, because he's got a competing species. He's got crappie that'll fill in that place, and the bluegill won't rebound, right? When it's a simple system like this, you like a seesaw, right? What happens to one side directly affects the other. But when you add the crappie in there, it's not a simple seesaw anymore. It's way more complex, just with 3 species. So, or actually 4. There's probably red ear in there too. But red ear spawn once a year and tend to not overcrowd. So we don't have too many problems with red ear crowding. So again, understanding all that, telling Alex to remove bass from the pond is a bad idea, because crappie are already removing the reproduction for him every year. He's not getting very good bass recruitment, and he's not getting very good bass growth because of the competition. So he's using forward-facing sonar in a completely different way to try to get into the crappie population enough that they stop doing that to him. And in a 2.5 acre pond, it's a small enough pond that he can make a significant impact. If it was up to like 7 to 10 acres, one fisherman can't keep enough crappie to make any difference. He's going to need help. But it's a small enough system that his efforts can make an impact. And I'll tie that right back into what I just said about the lake back here. 10,000 acres of water, a few hundred people a week, a few hundred people a weekend, a few hundred people a day, which it's not even getting that much pressure, keeping everything they catch. It's not enough of an impact on 10,000 acres of water to make any difference at all. Right? They can keep all the fish they want. It's not going to change the fishery. It's too big, right? It's just not. And people kind of overestimate that harvest is man's negative impact. They kind of are comparing bank fishermen to like a commercial fishing trawler, it's pulling nets, and it's like not the same thing at all. Those people are having days just like you are. Some days you're catching fish, some days you're not catching fish. That's part of it. Back to the point Alex was trying to make, though. Where does he break on the relative weight scale? Like, he caught a really nice bass the other day. I think it was like 85%. Should he keep it or not? Well, he's got competing species. He's got crappie. He shouldn't keep it. He should put it back. And we might be in a situation where if the crappie wipe the bass population out, or knock enough of the fry out that it severely reduces the bass population down, we might have to add some bass, some advanced bass, that are like that. That's, 6 to 8 inch bass are considered advanced from the fish hatchery. And they're expensive because of how much they eat. Again, it goes back into that conversion factor. You need 10 pounds of forage for one bass to grow 1 pound. So you need 2 pounds of forage or 3 pounds of forage for one bass to grow to like 1/4 of a pound. Well, if you have 1 million bass at the fish hatchery, right, you need an immense amount of forage to get that bass to grow. And that's why you see feed trained bass. They take them as fry, and they'll throw feed in, and the bass won't pick the food off the bottom. The bass will only grab it as it's falling, kind of like a Senko. So they'll take them when they're really small, and they'll feed train them. And all that's doing is giving them a cheaper way to keep the bass alive, get it to a little bit bigger size so they can sell it. And I don't like using feed train fish, and I don't like, and especially in like a new pond situation. Now in Alex's situation, I love them because it's the only way I can get a bass that big from the hatchery, right? They don't have another way. They're not turning bass loose to eat other fish. Those other fish they're trying to sell those other fish too. So they're not turning bass fry loose into a pond full of bluegill like we did at Sugar Hill and allowing them to grow at an unbelievable rate. No. And that's why I keep telling guys that with new ponds, don't buy those advanced fish. Those advanced fish are like 6 inches to 8 inches long, and they're already a year old. When we know we can grow them, just watched them grow in Sugar Hill Outdoors, 12 and a half, 13 and a half. Some of them were 14 inches long in the same year. And we stocked them this big because when you put bass in at 42 fish, whatever per acre that we did, they're going into a situation where there was so much forage for them to eat that they explode with growth, right? Picking one up a year old at 8 inches long for the fish hatchery is almost half the size it could have been if you would have done it the right way, done it my way. And I see guys make that mistake all the time. They'll go buy the advanced fish to put into a new pond, and that's a mistake because they could have had 12-inch. They could have had bass way bigger, and they also too spent way less money per bass. So we've got, and like at 85%, Alex, the bass isn't suffering. You know, you're dealing with a bass that's growing slowly that won't reach its genetic potential. 80%, that fish isn't suffering, right? Probably down to about 78, maybe we'll call it 75% relative weight. You're getting into the starved condition fish, right? And then, of course, in the 60s, those fish should pretty much be dead. And the problem with bass that live in that condition are they don't just die. If they would just die and float up in mass and give everybody a huge panic attack, it would actually make my job a lot easier. But bass are so tough that they'll just live in that like 70% range condition, under 75% range. Maybe 78%, I guess I would consider probably getting close to starved. But your fish at 83, 85, 86% relative weight, that's really nothing out of the ordinary for most of the bass in the country. And it's not starving per se. It's just not comparing that fish to what we're doing at Sugar Hill is an unfair comparison because it's just not going to have the food resources available to it due to crappie. Because the crappie are also eating what the bass eat. They're not only eating bass fry and reducing the bass population down, they're also eating bluegill fry. They're also eating the aquatic insects that bluegill eat. So to combat that, we've added a feeder, and Alec's been feeding every day. So we've got larger, heavier bluegill because crappie won't take the feed. So as we artificially inflate the bluegill population, it's a counterbalance to the crappie taking over, right? Because the space is limited. Again, we've artificially filled the cup with bluegill to here with the feeder. So that only leaves this much for the crappie to have left. Does that make sense? So it's we're using our feeder to feed our bluegill population up to displace the population towards bluegill, which then gives our bass an advantage. Now, like I said, we're still going to be losing bass fry to those crappie. But at that point, then we can go get some of those 8-inch feed train bass and throw them in there and help, and then force those crappie out, right? And that's what I mean by carrying capacity. And that's what I mean by managing the pond, right? We're bumping it in our favor. It's kind of like gambling at a 60-40% advantage or a 70-30% advantage, right? Could it still blow up on us? Yeah, absolutely. But like playing Texas Hold'em pocket aces, you're still going to lose some hands, but you're going to win a majority of the time with them. And that's what we're doing with Alex's pond. We're bumping the odds into our favor and bumping the carrying capacity, bumping the game fish we want into our favor. See what Drew's talking about. Oh, nice. See how easy that is? I didn't take my allergy medicine this morning, and now I'm starting to itch again. I don't know what I get allergic to around here, but that's good, Drew. I'm glad. I'm proud of you, man. Yeah, dude. And I mean, the thing about it is you're always going to be in that situation. Like you're never going to get out of it. It's kind of, again, like a hamster on a wheel. You're always going to be harsh and crappy. So you may go down there one day, to go bass fishing, but the crappie fishing is on fire. And you'll notice too the patterns in it, just like we started this thing out with a forward-facing sonar example. I don't care if you've got forward-facing. Go get forward-facing and point it right at the school crappie and drop whatever you want in front of them. Some days they don't bite. Other days they're absolutely on fire. On the days they're on fire, in his situation, he needs to put every one of those crappie in a cooler. I don't even care how big they are. They could be this big. Out, get rid of them. Because again, we're bumping the balance back to our favor, back into something that's manageable. If you don't, it'll skew to unmanageable. It'll get to the point where there's so many crappie that are like that big to maybe hand size and paper thin that you can't do anything with them. Yeah, I agree. You're seeing that. I mean, Alex has got forward facing on his kayak in his 2.5 acre pond. You can find them, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can catch them. And going back to the point that I was making, I really think these guys that are on forward facing so hard, so negative, I think they're getting paid by Garmin. I think they're getting paid to keep these arguments going because it's the best marketing that you could do. If they're not doing that, if they're not getting some kind of kickback from these depth finder companies, then they're idiots. And they're truly in their heart of hearts feel like that forward facing sonar is ruining fishing. They need to shut up about it and quit promoting it for them, because the only thing you're doing is bumping the sales of those things up. The only thing you're doing is giving this false image of how this technology is going to make you so much better fishermen, which is not. It's absolutely not. Absolutely doesn't matter. Oh, side imaging. There's another one. A-rigs was going to ruin bass fishing. Side imaging. Remember when that came out? Oh my God. They're so much easier to find. They're going to ruin bass fishing. Blah, 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 blah. You know what's ruining bass fishing? Idiots throwing bass around places. That's what's ruining bass fishing. Go back to that post I did the other day on Instagram about the list of exotic species that are down here in Florida that I never hear anybody talking about. Like, you can literally go out there and go down the bank. The guys do it with bows. I shoot them when I can. I'm not a very good shot with a bow yet, though, on the fish, on a blue tilapia. But, for every 5-pound blue tilapia they pull out, that opens up 5 pounds of some other fish, like shiners or bluegill or some other preferred forage that's not this big of a fish that those bass can eat. Those tilapia are tying up biomass, they're tying up space. They're useless. Yes, are they having babies? Yeah, they're having babies. But again, just like the example that I gave on the video about the poker chips, the tilapia, the 5-pound tilapia can stack up to the point where that's basically all you have. How do I know it? It already happened in the Silver River over there where there's no fishing allowed at all. They just naturally skewed to take up 83% of the biomass, according to the biologists over there. 83% of what's swimming around in that 5-mile stretch of river, 6 miles, whatever it is over there, is blue tilapia. Okay. You can kiss the bass fishery goodbye. I just drifted it the other day in the yak, just get some pictures, get some content, saw some manatees, mostly park the truck out in the parking lot and let the tourists see the badges and stuff. Maybe I'll get some followers. I'm trying to multitask, but you can go get all the fishermen you want. You can go get all the spear fishermen you want, right? You're going to need an army of them, and you're going to need them out there every year to hammer those blue tilapia down. Like the amount of effort it would take to remove that many fish. Had some guy come on here asking me, "Well, what are their plans?" I was on YouTube. Well, I guess I am on YouTube. What are the biologists' plans to fix this? Like, there's no plan to fix that, dude. It's gone. Kiss it goodbye. You know, what are your plans for your healthcare after you're dead? It's dead. It's gone. It ain't coming back. Good luck. That's the part they don't get. Like the part that they just want to point fingers at everyone. That's your fault. And then you need to do a better job at your job at a completely unreasonable. Why don't you have $1 trillion? You know what I mean? That's saying the same thing as why don't the biologists go and get all the blue tilapia out of the water? Because it's impossible for one person to do in a lifetime, or for even, I mean, Jason told me, I think they've got 100 biologists to manage 80 or 8,000 lakes in this area in Central Florida. What's 100 dudes going to do? How many shock boats you got? 6, 8, 10? You couldn't even use all 10 shock boats and harvest enough blue tilapia out of the lake behind my house to make any difference. Now, these old boys that are coming out here with their bow fishing rigs, going bow fishing every night, shooting, bringing tourists out here and shooting everything, they're helping. You know, they're putting money in their pocket. I'm sure they're probably selling those tilapia to the fish market. I hope they are. I wonder if I could make side money doing that. That'd be a good job. But no, you need to kill them. You know, the exact same way that, like, if you've got a pond, a simple system where you've got the bass, you've done catch and release, you've listened to television, you've got too many bass in the system. You need to make some space. You need to free some space up. You need to reduce the bass population down so the bluegill population goes back up. And even in a pond or a lake as complex as Rodman, the last time I did, not the last time I saw Butch last time, but I don't know. The last time they'll do interviews out there, like a fisherman survey interview. It was the biologist. It wasn't Jason. It was the other guy. I can't remember his name now, but I was talking to him for a while, and he's like, how many 16-inch bass did you catch today, or sub 16-inch fish did you catch today? It's like 2. Did you keep them? No. And you could see like the disappointment in his face. Like they like need some harvest on the fish, you know, to free up some forage, to free up some space. Harvest is necessary to a fish population. It is to a deer population or any other wildlife population. Yeah, right. Fishing. It's just, I mean, it's so foolish to me. I can't even watch what they're talking about. And it just, like, I wonder, do I just need to start, coming on and having an entire idiotic conversation about forward facing sonar and leave all the fish biology out of it? Just take all the dumbness out of it, or I'm sorry, all the intelligence out of it, and just make it completely mind-numbingly dumb. Just talk about things I already known for 30 years. I saw one guy go on for an hour and a half about how he couldn't, but it was just magic in his mind how the bass were all in the structure that he was fishing, and he couldn't catch them. It's like, no, duh. Like, I don't know, man. It's a crazy world. Somebody should sell tickets. Thanks, Kev. Appreciate it. So here again, like something as simple as this. Like, is this so hard to comprehend? Like, where's my finger? It's always backwards in this camera. So a 23-inch bass should weigh 7.1. Will I give it down to about 6.8? Yeah, I'll give it a little error room to the bottom, just a smudge, just a smidge, you know. But if it ain't near, if your 23-inch bass isn't near 7 pounds, if it's more like 4.5 pounds, okay, that's terrible. Okay, that's a horribly managed fish population. That's not good. Like that, like a red blinking light, like warning, warning, warning. Big problems. Dudes talk about spawning stress when fish are 2.5 pounds light of the standard. Again, like, what planet are you on? I did not invent this. This has been around for almost 100 years. All I did was take some public information that you can Google anywhere if you did any form of actual research on bass fisheries, and you can get those charts anywhere. I just simplified them. You should see how the actual chart has set, like, where's my finger at? 17 to 18. It'll give you numbers on 17.1, 17.2, 17.3, 17.4, 17.5. I just do it like, okay, it's 17 and a half. It should be about 3 pounds. You see how I got there? See how hard that was? Like, I don't need to know it to the exact decimal, right? In the field. Like 17 and a half, 3-pounder, good to go. 2.8, I'll take it. 1.8, 2.1, whoa, okay, there's a problem in your 17, 18-inch slot. I mean, is it really that hard? It's seriously. Oh, you said it all right there, MD. It's what gets me is the lack of comprehension. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you how many on the ones that I'm triggering people on purpose with the cooler full of bass. How many of those dudes are like, can't you take those to another lake? It's like, if you've not seen anything, like, you're not supposed to be doing that. If you get caught doing that, you're getting ticketed big time. You might, I mean, there's some places they might take your truck. Like, that's illegal, dude. Like, no, we're not taking these fish to another lake. I don't know. And I mean, so many of them, so many times I've answered that same question on that same post. A few of the times I've answered them so close to each other that I just tell people to read the comments. Just read the last comment that was before you talk. Just read the last comment. I answered it 7,000 times. I've answered it 70,000 times, 7 million times. I've answered the same question. No, we're not transporting bass on our lake. They're going in the cooler and they're going in the fryer. That's it. They're going in the fish tacos. The world's not ending. Yeah, I appreciate you, Kevin. I really do appreciate you guys a lot. I mean, what do we got in here? 9 of us. Again, I don't get it, man. Why is there not like 900? I don't think it's that advanced. I don't think it's that technical. I don't know, a buddy of mine who follows along, he told me, he's like, man, your page is technical. Page is too technical. And I'm like, really? Is it? I guess it is. He's probably right. He teaches this crap for a living. He's probably exactly right. With that being said, let's move on to, I did make a couple notes. Tackle talk. Oh, I'm stealing that from Andrew. Stealing your name, Andrew. Sorry, Hayes. It's mine now. If you haven't listened to Tackle Talk, man, go check out Andrew Hayes. He's doing a great job over there. I've been on it, I think, 5 times now. Self-promote. Nobody's going to promote for you. So I got some baits laid out here. This is the last one I got from Jen. And I left some string on it so I could hold it like this and try to get some light on there. So I'm really digging bull shad. I mean, you guys know that, right? But I still get comments, again, just these dumb comments. Look how good like the artwork she's got on the paint, man. Look at that's like male bluegill with some like red breast mixed in. You know what I mean? Like, you should be able to take that. I mean, that thing got smoked at the kayak too, man, right at the boat. I couldn't get hooks in it. I'm literally about to take it out of the water. And I mean, it was probably a 5-pound plus fish over at Sugar Hill. Hit that the first day I bought it. But, you know, let's look at the diameter of, I can get my fingers around the top of that. And I get comments all the time, like, why those hooks are so sharp. I don't want them in my hand. So we're talking about a diameter of bass's mouth that big can eat this. And people are still coming up to me going, you fishing with a big enough lure? When are you going to catch on that? Jaws? It's like, nah. I mean, like a 2-pound bass can eat a fish that size. Same with this one. I had this exact comment on this glide. I had Mike put me in a new silicone tail, knocked it out of there. And I'm starting to get some nice hook rash. See that hook rash? Right in that. Oh, go that other way. Jen, if you get a bunch of hook rash and it changes your bait color too bad, Jen can just repaint that. But I like that bait. And again, like, look at that. Like, it's not even, it's like a 1 pound bass can eat that easy, you know? And I'm not talking about young fish. I'm talking about older, like advanced, like dudes that have been on the planet a long time. She's fishing with a big enough lure. Not really. You should see the 11-inch I got over there. No, I can go way bigger than that, Holmes. Like that's some little medium action stuff there. That's a small fish lure. Like, what planet do you live on? How do you not know that bass eat big meals? Like, what do you think an 8-pound bass can eat? Right? Same with these guys right here, man. Here's my boys. Going to see them in about a month down at the ICAST. G-Crack. I was sitting on the internet in like 2019, just getting this thing going. Maybe it was 2020. I can't remember. No, it was 19. It was like September. No, I think it was September 2020, actually. That's if I go back in my memory banks to when I looked it up once, I think it was September 2020. And some jackleg had made a post about Bellows Gill, holding it just like this, holding it up to the camera, talking about, look at this gimmick. Look at this. Look at what they've done. And I'm like, first of all, that's Japanese made. And the last time I checked, the Japanese don't play around with their fishing. So there's that. But I looked at that completely differently than he did. He's holding it up, talking trash about it, right? I'm looking at it like, man, I have not seen that before. That is very interesting looking to me. And like, I was looking at this like the bellows, and I'm looking at the size of it. And I'm thinking about the versatility of it, how you can fish it like a fluke, how you can fish it like a jig, how you could slow roll it, you could just wake it, I mean, I'm thinking, I'll actually, the first time I fished with it was on a Tokyo rig, but I switched up to big swim bait hooks with a blade. I fish it like that. I'll rig it onto a bladed swim bait hook, and then I can just fish it like anything. It's I can just rock out with it. But I just looked at that and I did not think what he was thinking, and after I saw he was just copying some other clown who was talking trash about Bellows Gills. It wasn't even an original thought on his part. Sorry, allergies. He was just copying some other guy who was trash talking him. So I rewound the thing back and I looked it up. And at that time, they didn't have any kind of Bellows or whatever it is. G-Crack USA didn't even have USA part. They were still in Japan, just trying to come over. And I was like, I'm ordering that right now. And I did. I didn't even order any of them but the big ones, the 5.8s, just like this. It was in the muddy gill color. I think it's like purple on one side and tan on the other. I'm like, that dog will hunt. I'm pretty sure it will. It's either going to work really good or not at all. That was my impression of it. And I don't know, maybe a week, 10 days went by. They came in the mail. If you scroll back far enough, you can watch this whole exchange on Instagram. I put it in my little light box, took a picture of it, said, check this thing out, guys. Immediately, guys started coming on there. Again, just parroting what they already heard from some other, gimmick. Why don't you show us a fish that you caught? All right, go look at my highlights. I was at like 20 minutes. I had a fish over 7 pounds. 20 minutes. I put it in the ramp. It took me more time to paddle across to the point where the fish hang out. Again, I'm taking that lure right to the rocky point over there where I catch good fish. Do I catch good fish there all the time? Heck no. Did I even catch good fish over there once a month? Heck no. But I know from electrofishing, yeah. If there's a good fish there, that fish is there for a reason. And there'll be a repeat pattern after 15 years, 18 years of electrofishing lakes. You could just tell the kid on the front of the boat, get ready, we're fixing to roll big fish. And it would be 10, 15, 20 seconds later, bop, 8, bop, 9, bop, 7.5, bop, and every single time the kid at the front of the boat would be amazed. How did you know? Like, how did I know? Even on lakes that I'd never electrofished on. Oh, get ready. I did it in North Carolina one time. Thomas was on the boat. I can't remember Thomas's last name. Shout out to Thomas, though, if you're out there watching, bro. He's a good kid. And he's not a kid anymore. He's probably a 40-year-old man at this point, but he was a kid back then. And I said, Thomas, man, you better get ready because it's about to be on. And we rolled one like 9 pounds within 30 seconds of me saying that. And he asked me, plain, like, how did you know? Like, it was a 60-acre lake on a golf course. And he's like, how did you know that? And I said, because look at the lay of the land. Look around you. It was literally no structure. It was a golf course, water hazard / irrigation pond, basically. But they ran the sprinklers off, and it was nothing bank. It was nothing. There was no blowdowns. There's a couple of rocks you'd pick fish up on every once in a while, but there was absolutely nothing in the lake intentionally. The golf course did not let people fish there, but there was a bridge that had pilings that the golf course drove their carts across, to get across one corner of the lake. There was some bridge pilings right there. And we got within about 20 yards of the bridge pilings. And I was like, you better get ready because it's the only structure in the whole 60 acres of water, And he got to looking around and he was like, oh yeah, you're right. And I'm like, yeah, I've been doing this a long time. Yeah, man, I appreciate you, MD. I think there is some echo chamber type of pattern of logic or something. I don't know. I understand where the dudes are coming from who want to argue. I don't even really consider arguing anymore. Call it debate. It's like debate team, I was on that a little bit in school. And like we didn't like go to like the teacher would give us like something to debate on. Like, let's just use politics, like Biden, Trump. Okay. And so you've got to go do an argument about for Biden. And then the next day you've got to come do it for Trump. Like there were no subjects that you were allowed to just take one side on. So it didn't matter. Right. So you didn't get locked into some kind of frame of mind. Right. It's just a debate. And, we're going to use evidence and we're going to do the best job that we can do to present our case. Almost like going to court, speaking like a lawyer. You don't really care if if the dude is guilty or not. You're there to make money. You're there to present the case with the evidence you have available with you. You do the best job you can do. It's really no different than that. That's the way I look at this, But I just find it like crazy that it's so redundant for so long. I mean, this is like 30 years of this, and we're still kind of on week 1, day 1 stuff. And I get it. I mean, I totally get it. I went to that school. I went to Georgia thinking, man, I have been bass fishing and I am going to, I've got an advantage because of the amount of fishing that I've done. Like I had that in my head. But the part that I didn't have in my head was letting that prevent me from learning. Like, but I definitely saw it, in my school, in the wildlife school, deer hunters acting the same way, going into the wildlife biology program, thinking that they've been deer hunting their whole life. So this is going to come innately to them. It's going to be no problem. A lot of dudes dropped out, didn't make it through, went and majored in something else, went and listened to it. And, it wasn't confirmation bias, they weren't getting confirmed there that they were right and they couldn't handle it. Where I went the other way. I was like, holy cow, I've been bass fishing a long time, but that's not going to help me here. I better be quiet and listen to these dudes because these guys are punching way above my weight. And they still are, bro. Like, I am like probably the worst fisheries biology student that ever went through fisheries biology school. All those dudes are smarter than me. It was hard, and I don't know, but I got here to address what he's talked about. I got here because so many people called about their ponds when I was in business for myself, full time doing that. I'd say if I got 20 phone calls, out of those 20 phone calls, maybe 18 people didn't do business with me in any way, shape, or form. Like, they didn't have that kind of money. They had kids, they had families, they had a pond behind the place they were renting, maybe, or they had a pond behind the house that they had just bought, but they didn't have pond management money, right? That I get. We all get that, right? And you ended up working for doctors and lawyers and, politicians and musicians. Musicians are actually the coolest people with money I've ever met. All the musicians I've ever met have actually been pretty cool, but not so much on the politicians or lawyers or doctors for that matter. But that was my idea to do the page. That's where I was coming from. It's like, I've got this information in my head. It's not doing any good to sit on it. I'm not really using it to make a living anymore. Take a job here or there or whatever, but for the most part, I'm not using the information. Why not start a social media page that helps those 18 people who called who couldn't afford it, that I've sat there and watched for 20 years, go. And I always help those folks too, because it was smart. It was smart to do it that way too, looking back on it. If you called me and you're like, man, I don't have it, I'd still help you. I'd say, go to that. Where are you living? What's your pond? What's your problem? Just like I'm doing now. I've been doing this forever. I've been doing this since 1996. And I'll help anybody who asks me for help. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. I mean, this is how I get it done. This is how I get paid money. You can do it this way, or you can go to Facebook and listen to the idiots in the group. But, there's only one of us who paid our light bills and paid off a house doing this for a living. So, you can take anybody's advice you want to. But inevitably, those people would run into somebody else and they'd be like, no, I know a dude that does that for a living. There's still people that don't know there's guys like us who do this for a living. Every day I've never even seen this job before, all the time. Like, electrician, if you got a bad wire and you call electrician, and if you got bad plumbing, you call a plumber. Everybody knows that. But if you got a bad pond, people don't have a clue who to call, and that's why the Facebook group is the way that it is, with the misinformation spreading over there. So I don't know. It wasn't a bad business plan to help those people, even though I wasn't getting paid, because, like I said, inevitably they knew somebody who did get me a client that got into a homeowner association or to a doctor or to whoever, and that's what kept me in business all those years, was just helping everyone who called me. It was a pretty strong business model, and I still think it's a strong business model. I mean, I'm not giving up on it. I like helping people with their ponds. I always have. I've always enjoyed this. So it's just kind of who I am at this point. It's certainly why I went into started my own business, because that's what I wanted to do, and I feel lucky I didn't make $1 million or anything, but I also didn't have a boss and didn't take crap off anyone, and kind of wanted to work when I wanted to, and did my own thing. And I'm very, very fortunate. Not many people have that, Most people have to go to a place they hate to work, and deal with people they don't like. And my biggest complaint is forward facing sonar, duh, uh, oh, Kev, you're right about that, bro. This YouTube thing is well, it's up until recently, it's been over my head. I just simply didn't even know how to operate this stuff. I didn't come up in the time, like when I was graduating from Georgia, we were getting a computer. We had just gotten like excuse me, a major computer lab in the school. There were no laptops back then, you know. Teacher wrote on dry erase boards and on chalkboards and stuff. They don't do that crap anymore. Um, so, oh, I appreciate that. You know, I'm reading and I can't read and talk at the same time. I haven't mastered that one yet. But yeah, to address the controversial topic or the name, yeah, I've been doing that as well. Although on YouTube, the highest one I've got was understanding. I think it was understanding carrying capacity is how I phrased it. I have to go back and look. I don't even remember, but it's still running 1.25 million views and going like on a thousands and thousands and thousands of people are seeing it. And it's strange, like when you get one or two, you know, that go into the millions, how big, like you don't really understand like how many people are not seeing you until you see it roll like that. You know what I mean? And how much they're restricting it. I kind of wish now I had this idea, oh, probably 15 years ago, and I didn't follow through with it. Again, we didn't have the technology. I would have had to have recorded it on a VHS like hand recorder, then got it digitized, then then learned how to put it on YouTube. And I just didn't have the technical skill, and still really don't. Um, I'm barely making it, but I think the lives like this help a lot, help people engage. These, I mean, we've only got like 6 people on here right now, but by the end of the like this time next week, there'll probably be like 150 views on this thing, you know? So that's pretty good. That's I've even thought about maybe going live more often. Some I've noticed some of these college football guys go live every single day for like 30 minutes or an hour. I thought, maybe I should change the strategy. You know, can I talk about this stuff? I could. It'd be redundant, but hell, it's already redundant. So, MD, I'm with you on that, man. I've had some health problems, and they can't figure out what's going on. And so I'm sitting here scratching my face and red on my ears and on my neck and autoimmune. I'm probably dealing with too much pesticide, you know, too many years being a pesticide applicator. But my health is great. Like as far as the blood work and everything, like nobody can give me any sort of like you're sick this way. So that's good news. The bad news is the amount of specialists I've had to see, the amount of costs that I've run up to get no answers. It's been very frustrating. Um, but I cycle and I've been working on my diet. I don't eat processed foods anymore. Actually got some bread for the first time in a really, really long time. And it was like the whole grains and everything, the bread you're supposed to eat and everything. And I have like destroyed my gut just from eating some toast. Um, but yeah, I've had some real problems. I've had some real problems with doctors, you know, thinking they know what I know, like trying to work for them. I don't. Again, I'm not sugarcoating it for them either. You know, you don't do this for a living. You don't do my job. You don't have my experience. Just like I don't have yours. I don't go to your office and tell you how to diagnose people with crap. Don't tell me how to diagnose a pond. Don't pretend to assume that you know everything I know because you've got a PhD in something completely irrelevant to the discussion. You know, um, most doctors don't like being talked to that way. I think most doctors and most folks, most dudes with money, really, it's just I think it's a money issue. You make a lot of money, and it just goes right there, and it seems to be a pattern for most. You know, ego feeds the ego too good, but I don't know. I'll help anyone. You know, I'm not going to hold it against you. You're a doctor, MD. I just it makes it difficult being so redundant again on this dumbest crap. Forward-facing sonar is ruining fishing. Whatever. But I found it interesting, though, when I went live, the traffic was so high. It took about a half an hour to try to go live on a Saturday morning at 10:30. Although it hasn't really improved my numbers at all. 1 hour. But that being said, let's just leave it at an hour, boys. And sometimes the 2 hour ones don't get as many views. So let's try to scale the information back, keep it where it's at. Any questions or anything you have, throw in the comments. I'll make notes and we'll do it live again. Maybe Wednesday or so. Maybe I'll try going twice a week. Try bumping up the rate of lives. Try to help people out. Maybe we'll get some more folks coming along. But as always, I appreciate you guys, and I will see you next time.